Hey everybody, today we're talking about two-finger chords. That's right, two-finger chords. And don't make the mistake that these are just for beginners. All sorts of advanced mandolin players are using two-finger chords. So it is a great place to start. Obviously, if you play a classic G two-finger chord right here, the next step is to work on a three-finger and a full four-finger chop chord, right? That's sort of the classic bluegrass thing. But the reality is the more you advanced as a mandolin player, you've got two-finger chords all over the mandolin fretboard. So today, we're going to look at how to start building these two-finger chords. And again, it's going to help anyone on their mandolin journey. Now, I invite you over to patreon.com/MyBluegrassRomance, where I've got more resources, tablatures, and a bunch of other things that add on to this particular lesson. So if you're interested, head on over there, but let's get right into this. So essentially, learning that G chord, again, you've got this two-finger chord right here. Okay, great, wonderful, awesome. You memorized a shape. But what we need to talk about today is the relationship of understanding your fretboard. And I like to say, in this particular shape, the bird is on the root, right? You ever heard whipping the bird? Okay, in this case, your bird is going to be on the root. Right there, that's a G note. So I'm going to start learning my fretboard that, hey, there's a G note. And now I can build that shape, right? If I put my index finger one string closer to me and one fret back and play those two, that's going to be a G chord. So that's going to be true in other places too, right? If you know your fretboard at all, on the D string here on the 5th fret, that's a G note. If you didn't know that, now you do. But say that's your G note, put your bird on the G, put your bird on the root, and then you go up with your first finger one fret towards you, one fret back. There's another G chord. How about this one? If you've got an open A string right here, what that means is at your 12th fret, right up here, that's your octave, right? So if I go back from that A, that's an A flat, right? Or a G sharp. If I go one back, the 10th fret, that's a G. So if my bird's on the root, then I go there, up and back one, right? Same shape. There's another G chord. So very quickly, you're learning your fretboard and you're learning the relationship of that root to that finger that's behind it. That's actually the third of the chord. But again, here's a G. Here's a G. Right? Up here on the 10th fret. There's another G. All right, great, wonderful, awesome. That's a G. What you shouldn't be doing as you go through your mandolin journey is just like memorizing, like, well, I know a G chord is here, and I've memorized that exact specific position in exact specific chord, because then you can't really move it around. Now, the joy of playing double stops on mandolin, because of the way it's tuned as an instrument, it is easy to move around the neck. The best thing about learning the bird is on the root is that if you know that this is a G, right, and you know that 2 frets up from that is an A, now you can play that same exact shape there, right? So that's an A. Well, where else are there A's on the fretboard? Well, 2 frets up from this one, there's an A, right? So you can play, again, bird is on the root. You got an A there. We talked about this octave A. Right there. So there's an A note right there. So what I would work on is learning, going around the fretboard and being like, oh, here's that shape. Well, where am I? Well, now I'm doing it in reverse. Okay, so my bird's on the root. Well, what is it? Well, actually, I know this is a D note. D sharp or E flat, E, F, right? All right. The bird is on the root. If I know that's an F, go searching for another F chord. Well, if this is G, F sharp, F, there's another F chord. All right. So now, once you've learned, like, the bird is on the root, you can find or create chords all across the neck. You may have never played an A up here, right? But now You know it's there, right? You may never have played the C here. Well, there it is, right? Again, you can work your way around the neck and find those chords. There's another C right there. Now what you have to do is start putting those in relationship to one another. So, for example, in the key of G, right? In the key of G, bird is on the root, there's your G. In a lot of bluegrass songs, you're going to play what's the 1 and the 4 and the 5 chord. So in the key of G, that would be the G is your 1, right? If you count up G, A, B, C is going to be your 4 chord, and one more, D is going to be your 5 chord. Those are going to be your most widely used chords in the key of G. What that means for this is I'm going to be wanting to learn a G chord, and then the 4 chord, a C chord, and the 5 chord, a D chord, and learning those 3 chords in relationship to each other. So, for example, if I know this G is here, I know the C is the 4, right? It's going to be the 4 chord. If that's a G, I know the C is 1 below there, right? So I just take my bird, I go from the 1, the root in the G chord, I go to the C, right? Which is again in the key of G, G, A, B, C, right? It's the 4th. And then I build a chord off that, then it's going to be the 4 chord. There's my C chord. So G, C. And learn these in relation to each other. Well, where's the 5th going to be? Well, if it's G, A, B, C, D, right? If G is going to be the root of the 1 chord, the C is the root of the 4 chord, just 2 notes up from that C is a D. That's going to be the 5 chord. Build your 2-finger chord off that. There's your 5. So now I can play a 1 chord in the key of G. 4, 5, 1. And I'm learning those in relation to each other. Alright, that's pretty easy. I can play like, bury me beneath the willow, under the weeping willow tree. And I've got those chords. Say someone says, well, I want to play that in the key of A. Alright, well, the bird is on the root. Where's the A? Here's the A, right? If I know that those relationships in the key of G to the 4 chord, to the 5 chord, back to the 1, that same is going to be true in the key of A. So A, D, E, A. See what I did there? In the key of A, if A is your root, count up, B, C, D is going to be your 4 chord, and E is going to be your 5 chord. And again, they're right here. So there you go. Now, as you start to learn the fretboard, you're going to learn some different things. So like in the key of G, for example, we talked about the G. Bird is on the root right there. But that G chord was also down here, right? So I could play that 1, 4, 5 progression, again, which was G, C, D, back to G. But I could also end on that lower G, right? G, C, D, G. Right? So you could start on that G and end up high. And what you should do also is practice between 1, 4, 1, 5, or 5, 4, 1. Or 5, 1, 5, 4. And then resolve on that 1. Learning how to play those in different combinations in relationship to one another. So yeah, again, my name's Jake. Head on over to patreon.com/MyBluegrassRomance. I actually think it's a /. I don't remember. But either way, check out patreon.com/MyBluegrassRomance. I've got all sorts of originals and stuff on there and more resources showing these in different places on the neck if that's going to be helpful to you. Thanks again for checking out my videos. I really appreciate it.